Hello, folks. Good morning. Welcome to a new episode of GSN Invest. In this episode, we'll be talking about the Indian wealth management space, right? And more specifically, Bernstein recently came out with a report on the Indian wealth management space. And given that a lot of retail investors, etc., do not have access to reports like this, we thought we might as well come out with a series where we sum up the key insights and key learnings from these sorts of reports into bite-sized YouTube videos so that our members can benefit from it, right? So when we think about the broader asset management space in India, there are broadly three ways you can play it, right? So before we kind of dive deeper into the wealth management players, it helps to kind of understand the other ways we can kind of play this market, right? So one way to kind of play wealth management directly is via the AMCs, right? So we have a lot of listed AMCs, which are your asset management companies. So these are companies which run your mutual funds in India, right? And this kind of gives you a good way to play uh, greater investments in mutual funds by middle class, upper middle class sort of individuals, right? Then a complement to this is the RTAs, right? So you have registrar and transfer agents, and there are broadly two main RTAs in India. So the way primarily people play RTAs is that if you're not very sure about one particular mutual fund player or one particular AMC who could win in India or who has a very strong case to kind of gain market share, you could instead kind of choose a RTA that has exposure to say around a few of these larger AMCs, and as they kind of grow their AUM, your RTAs are a beneficiary of that, right? So that those are the two traditional players to play mutual fund growth in India. And when we're looking at wealth, we're looking at pure wealth, right? We're not looking at the other more cyclical players like your brokers, etc. We primarily look at pure wealth arms, right? So two major things here. One is your AMCs, second is your RTAs. The third major chunk is your wealth managers, right? And these are primarily people who cater to your HNI, ultra HNI sort of individuals and provide end-to-end financial management to these sorts of individuals, right? So the question then comes is that in a market where you are betting on greater financialization and more Indians kind of investing in the markets, why are you looking to bet on wealth managers that focus on ultra HNIs and HNIs as opposed to AMCs which have a much broader scope as such, right? And the answer there is multifold, right? So one major factor here uh, is that in India, the wealth parity is quite a bit, right? So if you look at the top 1% of Indians, they own or control close to 70% of the total wealth, and the top 3% of Indians own close to 80% of the total wealth, right? So that is a very wide kind of wealth disparity. And to give you context, if you look at, say, the number of people who own, say, uh, $10 million or above in net worth, that's roughly say 87, 88 crores or above in net worth. There are roughly around 85,000 odd individuals in India who are above that criteria, right? And that puts us number four in the world, right? So there's USA at the top with around 9 lakh such individuals. Then there's China with around 4 lakh 70 individuals. Then there's Japan with around 1 lakh 20, and India is at number four, right? So in a traditionally considered a relatively poor country, we have this very wide kind of wealth disparity where the top 1% have a large chunk of wealth, and therefore you could build a good business, build out a good business model by catering to these individuals itself, right? Because they have the chunk of wealth, right? So that's reason number one. Reason number two is this market is still quite underpenetrated, right? So a lot of these individuals either kind of manage their own money or have some sort of family office or have kind of domestic banks running a quasi wealth sort of operation with them, right? And these niche specialized wealth managers in India still have just around 11% market share, right? So as more people look to get this sort of specialized wealth management expertise, this market, the scope of this market to grow is a lot faster, right? And the third is because you could offer some sort of specialized products, etc., to these individuals, the yields that you could potentially get from them could be a bit higher and a bit stickier as such, right? That's a relatively weaker reason because there's some amount of pushback from them on yields as well. but that's another reason why this end market is quite attractive as such, right? So once we've kind of established that, once we've kind of understood the players and why you might potentially want to understand this, the next question then that you should kind of arrive at is, how do you think at growth for these sorts of entities, and what are the key metrics that you should track while you're comparing any sort of wealth manager, right? And as you can understand, for any wealth manager, any AMC, the revenue that you will make will be proportional to your AUM, right? So if you are managing a 100 crore fund, you can make say 2% of that will make say 2 crores. If you are running a 1,000 crore fund, a 1 lakh crore fund, as your AUM increases, the amount of fees that you can generate from that will kind of grow, right? So your AUM growth is the number one metric to track for any of these wealth players. And basically, AUM can grow one of two ways, right? One is you have your MTM increases, which is basically every year the market will grow, right? So in India, historically, equity markets have grown, say, 12-13% odd. Your debt markets will grow, say, 7-8% odd. So on a combined basis, you'll grow 8, 9, 10% odd, right? So that is the MTM range in which through cycles, so there will obviously be down years for equities, there'll be slightly weaker years for debt as well. But through cycle, you will have your broader AUM grow 10% simply because the market keeps growing at that sort of pace, right? So the incremental growth in AUM will then come from getting new money in, right? The more you're able to kind of go out and hunt for new AUM, that's how faster your AUM can grow and faster your fee income can grow, right? And there we see a wide discrepancy, a wide deviation, correct me, between your mutual funds and wealth managers, right? So for mutual funds, a bulk of their growth for these AMCs, a bulk of their growth is from their year-on-year MTM increases, and the incremental growth that they can get from new money is a bit slower, right? And as a result of that, they are able to grow, say, their AUM at say 14-15% odd, with 8-9% from MTM, another 4-5% from new money, right? Whereas with your wealth managers, they've been able to grow their new money piece substantially faster, right? So if they are able to grow their AUM due to MTM gains by around say 8-9% odd, they're able to grow another 10-12%, sometimes even higher, because of the new money that they get in, right? And that kind of drives substantially faster AUM growth for businesses like these, right? So that gives you one kind of lever of how to think about growth for a wealth manager versus a traditional AMC as such, right? And once we've identified that the new money that you are getting in is the primary metric that you should now focus on, a natural consequence of that is trying to kind of break that down further as well, right? So the new money that you will get in for a wealth manager will be dependent on the number of RMs that you have and the RM productivity, right? So effectively, how much money can a RM go out and get for the fund, and effectively, because your pay will be relatively proportional, if you have good RM productivity increases, that will kind of flow better into the bottom line and be better for your PAT growth for the wealth manager as such, right? So that was the broad kind of gist of the report. Obviously, they kind of deep dive into three of the core wealth managers in India, and we'll be covering them separately in another episode this month. But broadly, wanted to give you a good idea of the sector, the various pieces of that sector, why Bernstein seem to prefer this part better than the rest. And once you've kind of identified that, what are the key KPIs, etc., that you should track to develop a better understanding of the wealth managers as such, right? I hope this episode added value. We'll keep doing a lot of these. Basically, as and when we kind of read reports by end of week, we'll try to come up with such episodes so that our retail customers can also get insights that larger sell-side houses in the market come out with as such, right? If you did like this report and like this episode, please consider subscribing. You have the YouTube subscription link down below. We are looking to get 200 subscribers quickly. So every time you hit the subscribe button, that will help us in our growth journey, right? Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.